Hello students, unfortunately we will not be able to meet in person for our second library session, but instead I am going to record this video because we need to talk about how you are going to do your research for your writing assignment number 3. This writing assignment is going to require that you find outside articles to help you develop your argument and support your points within your essay. It also requires that you cite those articles, and you are going to be using the MLA style format to do that. It's really important that we give credit to all of the information that we use to help us write our essays. So to begin this presentation, let's go over your writing assignment number 3. So the writing task is to analyze a pair of ads for companies that offer rival products. You will analyze and discuss the details of the different appeals that companies make when comparing their products. And at the end, you're going to explain which ad is more effective. Now, you also have a few research requirements that you will need to meet in order to do this essay successfully. The first part of this requires that you support your essay using information from your textbook and also one other article from a library database. So you do need to do some outside research to help you support your essay. This is likely the first time that you've been asked to do college-level research for an essay. So to make this process a little easier, I have created a resource list for the class that contains citations to recommended articles for you to use. You still will be responsible for finding the articles in the library's databases, which I'll show you how to do later in the session. But this way you don't have to stress out about identifying a credible and relevant article to use. Instead, you can pick one of the articles from the list and focus on reading and incorporating the information into your essay. I have sent the resource list to your instructor who will provide it to you. We will discuss how to locate the articles at the end of the presentation. The second part of the research requirement is that you cite the article that you use in your essay and format your paper using MLA citation style. Most of you are probably new to citation, so we will be covering the basics in this video. So let's get started with that discussion. You have likely heard this term citation before, but what exactly does it mean? Citation is the process that gives credit to the sources we use to help us write our research essays. So this would include books or articles or websites that you use to help you write your essay and support your argument. Citation is also important because it allows us to be transparent with our reader, in this case our instructor. It gives us the opportunity to show the instructor where we are getting our information from. There are a variety of different citation formats that you can use to help give credit to your sources and provide this transparency to your instructor. The most common popular citation formats include APA citation, MLA citation, and Chicago style citation. In this class, we will be using MLA citation for your essays. So there are two parts to citing resources. And this is specifically for MLA citation. You have the in-text citation and you have the works cited list. So the in-text citation is just the brief citation within the research paper. And that follows any sort of direct quote, any sort of argument, any sort of theory that needs to be cited. And right after you paraphrase that information or you do a direct quote, there needs to be a brief in-text citation that lists the name of the author and the page number, which we'll get into in a little bit. The second part of MLA citation is the works cited list. So there needs to be a complete citation for every in-text citation that you have. And that complete citation is going to list a lot more detailed information about that source. The next question is, when should you cite a source? So you should cite a source when you took a thought, idea, theory, or direct quote from that published source. Or if you took any sort of unfamiliar or obscure facts. So for example, if the article explains how far the sun is away from the earth, you would need to cite that fact because that is not something that the average person would know. And any sort of research or research study, that also needs to be cited as well. Basically, the only thing you would not cite is common knowledge. So, when is Christmas? Well, everyone knows Christmas is December 25th. So that does not need to be cited. And you can take that one step further. If you're in a U.S. history class, ask yourself, would your instructor need to look this up? So if you were writing about the U.S. Constitution, your instructor knows when the U.S. Constitution was written. You do not need to cite that fact, even if the average person might not know that. You also don't need to cite any of your own personal feelings or experiences. So if you are writing an essay that includes your personal feelings and experiences, that does not need to be cited either. Those are your own personal feelings. To better explain these two components, I'd like to show you a sample student paper formatted in MLA style. You should have been given this file already, so please pause this video and open up the document so that we can review it together. Okay, so hopefully you have successfully opened the file and you are looking at the essay right now. It will look something like this. Now take a moment to browse through the sample student essay. Make sure to look at the formatting of the essay. Pay attention to any direct quotations and look at the works cited list at the end of the essay. All right, let's go to the end of the essay and go to the works cited page. So what is the purpose of this page? As I mentioned earlier, the works cited page, which comes at the very end of your essay, lists all of the articles or books or any sort of informational sources that you use to help you write your essay. And each of these entries are called citations. Each citation provides specific information about the source, which usually includes the author's name, the title of the article, magazine, journal, and/or book, the date published, and the publication information. The order of the information and formatting are really important. This is determined by MLA and must be followed exactly according to their instructions. So where do you get information for how to format your citations? This can be found in a number of different places, including the official MLA handbook, which you can find in the library, and some online resources as well. But the library does provide an MLA guide, which is a very brief version of the handbook. It's about 4 pages, but it has all of the basic formatting instructions for you. And if you scroll down through the guide, which I will provide to your instructor so that you can have this file, the way this is organized is by publication type. So let's say, for example, you want to cite a book. You would just go to the format for book and follow it appropriately. So it's telling you what the format is. So it's the author's last name, the first name, the title of the book, the publisher, year. And if it's an online source, you would put the database or URL. If it's a book in print, you would just leave that out. And here's an example. So here is Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. The publisher is Little Brown and Company, published in 2008. So you have to follow the format exactly. So that would be last name, comma, first name. And then notice that the title of the book is italicized and that there's a period after. So all of those formatting and punctuation elements are very important. All right, let's go back to talking about the sample student essay. So looking at the Works Cited page, can you tell me who the author is of the second citation? Did you get it right? Stephanie Kuntz is the author of the second citation. And you can tell because usually the author's name comes first in the citation. So the first one is Buchanan and the second one is Stephanie Kuntz. Now go ahead and look through the sample student essay and tell me where you see her last name. So just pause this video, go through the student essay, and tell me where you see the last name Kuntz. Did you find it? So the last name Kuntz can be found at the end of the first paragraph. Now I want you to notice that it is in parentheses. This is what we call an in-text citation. And the student placed her name here because this information right before it was taken from Kuntz's article. Now, if you notice, there is no quotation marks around this information. Why is that? So the reason why you do not see quotation marks is because this information is paraphrased. So paraphrasing means that the student put Kuntz's information into his or her own words. So this is still Kuntz's ideas, research, information, but the student rephrased it into his or her own words. And this is important because it shows your instructor that you understand the information. If you can put the information into your own words, you understand it. So paraphrasing is really important in your research essays and papers. But I want to be very clear that the in-text citation is still needed because even though the student paraphrased the information, it still came from Kuntz, and we have to give credit to the original author. Now, the in-text citation requires two pieces of information. It's the author's last name and the page number. So 147 represents the page number for where this information came from in the article. I am now going to scroll down to page 3 of the sample student essay. And I want to point out this in-text citation. So you'll see that there's just a number, and it's 99. Now this is the page number, but why does it not include the author's last name? As I mentioned before, your in-text citation needs two pieces of information. It needs the author's last name and the page number. So the reason why this in-text citation does not include the author's last name is because the student introduced the information with the author's name within his or her essay. So you can see here the information starts out with Liza Mundy points out that technology has produced. So because the student introduced the information with the author's name, it no longer needs to be included in the in-text citation. We do not want to repeat information. We do not need to include the author's name here because we've already said it within the essay. I'm going to continue to scroll down to the works cited list, and I want to point out this citation, Developments in the Law of Marriage. Now go through and find the in-text citation for this reference.